It's 1986. A journalist walks up to a random American on the street and asks, "Hey, who do you think will win the World Cup this year?" Guy looks back, confused, and says, "What's a World Cup?" That actually happened, not just once. Football, soccer, as Americans call it, was basically invisible in the United States. A foreign game, sport for immigrants, something that happened somewhere else, to someone else, in a language most Americans didn't speak. Fast forward to today. United States of America is about to co-host the biggest sporting event in human history. FIFA World Cup 2026, 48 teams, 3 countries, 16 stadiums, over 5 million fans expected to attend. How did America go from knowing nothing about football standing at the very center of it? That's exactly what we're going to find out. Stand where America is today, you have to go back to the beginning, and the beginning is a lot more interesting than you might think. Because here's the thing people always get wrong about American football history. Assume America never cared about the sport, that it was always ignored, always unpopular, always an afterthought. That's not entirely true. In the early 1900s, football was actually growing in the United States. Immigrant communities from Italy, Germany, Poland, and Scotland brought the game with them. Factories had teams, neighborhoods had leagues, cities had rivalries. America even had a professional football league, American Soccer League, back in the 1920s. It was genuinely popular. Then something happened. American Soccer League collapsed, Great Depression hit, and the other football, American football, along with baseball and basketball, swallowed up the sporting attention of an entire nation. For decades, beautiful game was pushed to the sidelines. By the time the rest of the world was going crazy for Pelé, for Johan Cruyff, for the 1970 World Cup in Mexico, Americans barely noticed. Football had to start all over again, from almost nothing. Let's rewind to 1950. FIFA World Cup in Brazil. United States qualified, which was already surprising. What happened next came one of the greatest upsets in World Cup history. USA beat England 1-0. England, the country that invented football, team that had never lost to an American side. A group of part-time players, including a dishwasher and a postal worker. The goal was scored by Joe Gaetjens, Haitian American who had literally just become eligible to play for the USA weeks earlier. Back in England, newspapers assumed the scoreline was a printing error. They thought someone had made a mistake. Surely it was 10-0 to England, not 1-0 to America. It was real. Problem? Almost nobody in America saw it. No live television, no social media, no viral clips. Miracle happened. Barely anyone back home knew about it. That tells you everything about where American football was at the time. Jump forward to 1975 and one of the most audacious moves in sporting history. The New York Cosmos signed Pelé, the greatest footballer who ever lived, 3-time World Cup winner, living legend. They brought him to New York City, and for a moment, it worked. Crowds flooded in, stadiums filled up. Pelé was on talk shows, on magazine covers, at Studio 54, dancing with celebrities. Football was suddenly cool in America. The North American Soccer League boomed. Signed Franz Beckenbauer, Giorgio Chinaglia, Johan Cruyff, the biggest names in world football coming to America. It was built on glamour, not foundations. When the stars retired, fans disappeared. NASL collapsed in 1984. America was back to square one. Here is where the real story begins. In 1988, FIFA made a decision that shocked the football world. They awarded the 1994 World Cup to the United States. Critics were furious. How could you give the World Cup to a country with no professional league, no football culture, no real fan base? FIFA's answer was simple. America had the infrastructure, stadiums, hotels, the money. FIFA believed World Cup on American soil would finally ignite the sport there permanently. In the summer of 1994, it did something remarkable. 1994 World Cup broke attendance records that still stand today. Over 3.5 million fans attended the tournament. The average attendance per game, almost 70,000 people. Numbers no World Cup has matched since. Americans came out in huge numbers, not because they were lifelong football fans, because the World Cup has a gravity all of its own. When the whole world shows up on your doorstep, you pay attention. Brazil won the tournament. Roberto Baggio missed that famous penalty in the final. And an entire generation of American kids watched it happen on television. FIFA had made one demand when awarding the 1994 World Cup to the USA. America had to create a professional football league, and so in 1996, Major League Soccer was born. The early years were rough, attendances were low, budgets were tiny, the quality was average. Critics called it a retirement league, a place where aging European stars came to collect their last paychecks. And honestly, for a while, that criticism was fair. MLS did something smart. They were patient. They invested in youth academies, built football specific stadiums, they targeted passionate local communities. Slowly, very slowly, it started to work. David Beckham arrived in Los Angeles in 2007. Suddenly, American football was on the front page of every entertainment magazine on earth. Then came Thierry Henry, Didier Drogba, Andrea Pirlo, Steven Gerrard, Frank Lampard. Football culture was arriving. And younger American fans were watching, learning, falling in love with the sport. Remember those kids who watched the 1994 World Cup? They grew up. Clint Dempsey signed for Fulham and then Tottenham Hotspur. Tim Howard became one of the best goalkeepers in the Premier League. Landon Donovan scored one of the most iconic World Cup goals in history against Algeria in 2010, sending America into the knockout rounds and sending an entire nation into a frenzy. 91st minute. Absolute pandemonium. It was watched by more American television viewers than any previous World Cup game in history. Football wasn't foreign anymore, it was theirs. And today, Christian Pulisic plays for AC Milan. Weston McKennie played in the Juventus first team. Gio Reyna came through at Borussia Dortmund. Taylor Adams captained Leeds United in the Premier League. American footballers are no longer curiosities in Europe. They are competitive, they are wanted, they belong. There are some things that might surprise you. Football is now the second most played sport among youth in the United States. More American kids play football than baseball. More kids play football than American football. United States women's national team has won 4 World Cups. Four. More than any other nation on earth. And the 2026 World Cup final will be played at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, just outside New York City. Biggest stage in the biggest city, the world's biggest sports market. That is not an accident. It's 40 years of work paying off. So why does any of this matter? Because the story of football in America is actually a story about something much bigger. A story about how culture spreads. How a sport can travel across oceans inside the boots of immigrants, survive decades of neglect, get rescued by a Brazilian legend dancing in a New York nightclub, grow quietly through academies and youth leagues and Saturday morning games in suburban parks, and then one day wake up and find itself at the center of the world. The 2026 World Cup is not just a tournament for American football, it is a coming of age moment. When 5 million fans pour into cities across the United States, Canada, and Mexico this summer, football will complete its journey. From invisible, unmissable, from a dishwasher scoring against England in 1950, Pelé dancing in New York in 1975, to Landon Donovan's famous 91st minute goal in 2010, to Christian Pulisic wearing the armband for his country at a World Cup on home soil in 2026. That's 40 years. It's one of the most unlikely journeys in the history of sport.